Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to March Mystery Madness 2024. This is the 9th year of BookTube's premier event celebrating murder mysteries. This is, I think, the 8th or the 7th year where I'm one of the co-hosts. I have a bunch of great co-hosts and a whole bunch of great moving parts. I think there's a Discord group. There's probably a Goodreads group. There's all sorts of fun, a bingo card, everything you could think of. Just type in, if you're not sure that you're following all the hosts, just use the hashtag March Mystery Madness. That should bring you to all the videos. One of our prompts this year is to the nines. The theme this year is to the nines because we're 9 years old this year. And one of the prompts is to read the 9th installment in a murder mystery series. A lot of them go on forever and ever, so they have number 9 installments. And I decided I would concentrate on that for this month. I love reading murder mysteries. So I'm picking the 9th volume in a series to add to my night's pile of reading every night and then talk to you about every day. And here I have three real choices when it comes to what my choices will be. One is the 9th book in a series where I know the series extremely well. All of the volumes in the series, I know the series extremely well, and number 9 will be a comfortable, fuzzy reread for me. Then 2 is a series that I've more or less followed, and I probably read each installment as it was coming out, but I don't vividly recall it until I reread it. And then the third option would be where I don't know the series of the book at all, where maybe I read the first book in a series but never anything else. Maybe I've never read anything in the series. I decided last night to pick one of that last group, a book that's just totally new ground for me. The author is not totally new ground for me, but this series is. I think I correctly got number 9. The author is Tess Gerritsen, a very popular new fixture on the New York Times bestseller list that a lot of you probably love, for a whole bunch of reasons that are not literary at all. I tend to have a sour taste in my mouth when I come to her books. And of course, I've given the game away, right? Because if there's a whole bunch of reasons that you have a sour taste in your mouth about an author when you think about them or when you see their books at a used bookstore, and yet you are willing to say that the reasons are not literary, then the reasons are not fair. Right? This isn't the high school reunion. If I'm willing to say that the reasons that I don't like an author are not literary, then those reasons are not fair. When it comes to reading their books. It might be fair when it comes to joining them in an elevator, but not when it comes to reading their books. And so I ate a little humble crow and I read a Tess Gerritsen novel. I read the 9th installment in the Rizzoli and Isles murder mystery series, which a lot of you will know. A lot of you love this author, I know. And also, even the ones of you who don't might know the TV series. Rizzoli and Isles was made into a TV series that I've never seen, even though it stars Angie Harmon. Even I can attest to the fact that Angie Harmon is alarmingly beautiful. And also incredibly talented. She makes good TV. Her people, or maybe her herself, she picks good projects. So it's kind of odd that I've never seen a single moment of Rizzoli and Isles. But nevertheless, I've watched more of yesterday's pick, Murder, She Wrote, than I have Rizzoli and Isles. I've never seen an episode. But I picked number 9, which I believe is this book, The Silent Girl. And this whole, there's a TV show right up at the top there. This TV show, or not this TV show, this series, I should get them out of the picture so they're not distracting me. This series is about a police detective named Jane Rizzoli and a forensic pathologist named Maura Isles. And they team up. They bring separate skills to the table, right? Jane Rizzoli is a tough, resilient Boston police detective who's good in a tight spot, good with a gun, good with a wisecracking quip. And Maura Isles is more, I would argue, more sensitive. I don't know for sure. A lot of you will know this series better than I do. I've only read this one book. But it struck me in this book that she's more volatile emotionally, that she's a little more sensitive, maybe a little bit more intelligent than her unofficial partner. They aren't actually partner. I mean, Rizzoli has a partner, but they do team up a lot. And they are a kind of an odd couple. And I have to admit, as long as I'm eating humble pie, I have to admit, this was tremendously effective stuff. Reading this, I wasn't 10 chapters in before I was just nodding along, before the hour was absolutely evaporating. I wasn't 10 chapters in other words, before I was willing to give Tess Gerritsen her props as a New York Times bestselling author. It's not an accident that you fall onto that list. You have to be willing to please a lot of people, and you have to be able to please them on page 10. And she does. She absolutely does. This book has what I would ordinarily call a self-indulgent opening that doesn't involve the police at all. It doesn't involve law enforcement at all. It's basically a cryptic origin story for a mysterious figure who is haunting the misty by streets of Boston's Chinatown. I couldn't help but laugh at evocations of the misty byways of Boston Chinatown whenever I encountered it in this book. I know Boston's Chinatown really well. And oddly enough, I think probably that Tess Gerritsen does not, which is a little odd. I mean, the Chinatown that is portrayed in this book is portrayed really well. It's a very effectively creepy setting. Again, hats off to this author. I don't imagine I'll ever be a fan, but this was a tremendously effective book without putting a foot wrong anywhere. Even that self-indulgent opening was so effective that I wasn't rolling my eyes at all. I read that. I just kept right on going. We go right to a courtroom scene after that, so there's no slacking in the tension. It was only when I was a little ways into the book that I realized that almost the whole game of this thing is given away in that opening. If you have any experience reading murder mysteries, you're not going to find anything hard to figure out. I mean, at one point, I won't spoil anything here, but at one point in that opening scene, the narrator of that opening scene is sitting at the wheel of a car at night, watching a young girl being shadowed by two menacing large men. And we're told at one point in that scene that one of the men looks into the car and sees the narrator. And we're told that he sees nothing that concerned him or threatened him in any way, just ignored it and moved on. That's a dead giveaway. That might not seem it. It is cryptic in the context of that opening chapter, but it's a dead giveaway to a whole bunch of things. Because in a situation like that, where you are walking down a sidewalk at night, down a deserted street in a bad neighborhood, you are walking 10 steps behind a young girl that you're obviously intending to assault, and you look into her car and see someone sitting there watching you, tick off in your mind the reasons why, if you're that man, you would not at all be bothered by that person watching you. There are like 2 reasons why. And you're going to be able to spot them the minute they recur in the book. There were little things like that, and they run throughout this book. Oh my God, the courtroom scene. There's a scene later on set in Chinatown, mostly starring Jane Rizzoli, that I guess the word I want here is hammy. That scene, especially later on with the cops, was hammy. And maybe, again, I don't mean any systemic condescension here, but maybe you kind of sort of have to have extra ham on your rye if you are a best-selling author. If you are a New York Times best-selling author, that's a different game than other authors play. Most authors never even come close to the bestseller list of the New York Times. Tess Gerritsen practically has a house there. And you know that if you're an American reader, you know the names of other writers in the American landscape today who are regularly on the New York Times bestseller list. Some of that might be reporting bias, but not all of it. It forces you to do some things in your narrative that a writer who knows that they're never going to come anywhere near the New York Times bestseller list is never even going to think of doing. And not all of those things are sellout things. That was also a bit of humble pie that I had to realize while I was reading this book, is that those things take skill. On their own, they take skill. There's a lot of skill in this book. It's not always the skill that I would like. I wish there were more complex characters in here. I wish the thing weren't quite so predictable. I wish the red herring at the end of the book weren't quite so red or quite so herringy. But I never wanted to stop reading. In fact, I never wanted to do anything else. I could barely breathe while I was reading. It was so enjoyable. It was so engrossing. Now, the rest of you could tell me. I won't be in a position to know if the rest of the Rizzoli and Isles books are like this. I am assuming that they are. What are the odds that I lighted on what I think is number 9 and hit a winner where the others aren't? What are the odds of that? I'm thinking this is probably just a really skilled best-selling author doing what she does. That's what I have to guess. I know that Rizzoli and Isles is an ongoing series. This book, I think, came out in 2011. I think the series is ongoing, but I know that it had many novels, many entries after this. So there's a part of my brain that was getting to the climax of the book. There are two rather well-orchestrated climaxes here. And also a personal thing. There's a personal climax involving Maura Isles that, again, I don't know how much it builds on earlier books, except from what I've been told. I know that some of it is built on earlier events, but I don't know how many of these threads go back and how far. But there was an emotional payoff for Maura Isles that was almost enough to carry the emotional side of this book. Not quite, but almost. But a part of my brain knew that the Rizzoli and Isles books go on after this, and yet Tess Gerritsen was so effective in this book that at the climax I was as nervous as anybody would be. I was as nervous as all the characters in the book are. Towards the climax of this book, I felt exactly what you must make your reader feel in a book in series, and so few authors can manage it. You made your author feel that the series is going to end with this book. That's no small feat, and it worked. I knew that this series goes on, and yet I was wondering, is everyone going to make it out of this alive? And also, there's a very neat, again, it's foreshadowed right at the beginning of the book, but there's a very neatly done folding of what does constitute right and what does constitute wrong. Who is doing wrong, and who's to say? I wasn't expecting that either. That element comes out the further along in the book you go and works really well. So my March Mystery Madness update for today is not the kind that I like to make, being a pompous blowhard with cards and credentials to prove it. But nevertheless, I go where the book takes me. I kind of thought going into this, I had an irrational prejudice against the author. My prejudice against the author might not be irrational, but it should not carry over to the books. And also, I thought, if this is 2011, that's a little bit early, but still, if this is two take-charge girl bosses who don't need no man, then maybe I know what I'm getting into here. Maybe I know that Rizzoli and Isles are gonna, you're a real ball-buster, lady, that sort of thing. I didn't get that at all, not at all. So there were a number of points in this book where New York Times bestseller fixture Tess Gerritsen did not condescend to me, the reader. I just reflexively say that about repeat New York Times bestsellers, that they build their careers on condescension. I don't know quite why I keep saying that, except that it sounds really good, because I don't know that it's always true. Some of them do. The more I think, for instance, about big tearjerker New York Times bestsellers, like, for instance, Where the Crawdads Sing, the more I see the condescension that I missed by giving the author the benefit of the doubt. Here I was expecting it, and I don't think there was any, except for the hamminess. The hamminess is a kind of condescension. In a way, I think it's just that Tess Gerritsen can't help herself. But in a way, hamminess is you saying, I don't quite have all the confidence in the world in my readers. I'm going to lay this on a little thick, because otherwise I'm not sure that they'll get it. Which is not, that you should not be thinking that way. If you're an author, if you don't trust your audience, get out of the business. But I'm not telling her to get out of the business. I might even be tempted, God forbid, to read another Rizzoli and Isles book. Amazing. Amazing and bad. Just, that is my update from March Mystery Madness, and yet somehow I want you to have a split screen in your brain that, yes, I was wrong about Tess Gerritsen. Yes, I was wrong about a series about two professional women in male-dominated Boston. Yes, I was wrong about a book about Boston. The irony of the Boston Chinatown setting is that Tess Gerritsen loads it up with misty dark alleys and broken bottles and whatnot. But there actually is a nefarious underworld in Boston's Chinatown. I have seen that underworld. It's not even hinted at in this book. It's kind of charming in a way. Tess Gerritsen looks at Boston's Chinatown and imagines the seedy underworld that it could be, and because I think she's probably fundamentally a wonderful person, which I never thought I would say, the reality of what is actually going on, not in the upper penthouses, but way down below in the basements, never even occurs to her. There's not even a hint of it here. And believe you me, if Rizzoli were part of the Boston PD, she would know a lot about that world. She doesn't appear to know anything about that world. And so this was kind of a split screen there. But I was expecting that to be ham-handed and manipulative, and it was not any more than I guess Ted Scarrison thought it needed to be. Despite the fact that I went into this book and was wrong about all of those things, I want your split brain reaction to be, yes, Steve was pleasantly surprised by all of those things while he was chowing down on humble pie, but also Steve is always right. Okay? I don't want the main tenet of our cult disturbed by this video. So you're somehow going to have to think of both of those at the same time. Skirts strikes again. Now I've done this, and now I have to confess, it actually has kind of an intriguing element to it. I'm actually thinking that tonight I might intentionally pick another book I know nothing about, another book that I've read not at all. Maybe even another kind of book or another kind of author that I was a little bit indisposed towards. See if I can get two pleasant surprises in a row. We'll see. I will wrap this up for now. I will spin the wheel later on tonight, much later on tonight. When it comes time to turn into a pumpkin and just read, this will be on the plate. And I'll decide then. So you'll find out when I make my next report. So thank you, BookTube. I'll see you then.